just unmute and check your audio, just make sure we can hear you?
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
I can. Awesome. And it looks like you're on about the 2481 Elm Street subdivision.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, awesome. And then, all right, so you can mute. I just wanted to check your audio. Thank you.
Sure.
Paul, that's Paul Markowitz, I assume?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Do you mind if I change your name on here from Paul's iPhone?
Well, I changed my last name to iPhone, so that would be really awkward. No, that would be good.
Okay, awesome.
Good.
Thank you. We can hear you just fine. So that's great.
Where are we on? When are we on in this whole thing?
You are the last application, so you should feel free to mute yourselves and turn off your video and have your dinner or whatever, because we've got a couple applications to get through before yours.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but just any ballpark how long it might take?
It depends. I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Probably not too long, but you know, yeah, at least 30 minutes. I mean, we've got the other subdivision on, and then there's also a new application that the board has seen before.
Great. I will mute myself. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right. So it's not amplified for you guys. It would be, if I was amplified, it would be coming out of that rear speaker. The microphone is for. Nope, you go. No, what's amplified through those speakers is everybody remotely.
Okay.
I will try to speak up though. Usually that's not a problem for me.
So seeing as it's just past 7 here, we will call this June 5th meeting of the DRB to order. We'll start by introducing the members, starting at my right.
Jean Leon, board member.
Catherine Burgess, board member.
Meredith Crandall, staff.
Rob Goodwin, the chair. Alex, if you want to just pull your microphone up right there.
Yeah.
I thought we weren't using it.
No,
it
we
goes-
talk for everybody remotely and for the recording minutes. The microphones don't matter for people in the room. So we still need to speak up and speak into the microphones. And when people come up to testify, they'll have to speak into microphones too.
Taking me like 4 years to figure it out.
It's yeah, we and people have to get reminded all the time. So don't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay, well, so the meeting is called to order. Just turn it over to Meredith real quick for a brief review of our procedures, particularly related to the remote aspect of this meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to be sharing my screen. The stuff on the screen is mostly for anybody who is watching the meeting over ORCA Media. Oh, and of course it's doing all sorts of fun stuff here on me. All right. So for those viewing tonight's Development Review Board meeting via ORCA Media, you can participate in the meeting via the Zoom platform, either through video or telephone access options. So if you want to be able to have it all integrated with video and you can see us and we can see you, you're going to want to type this web address right into your platform. It will bring you into the Zoom meeting. I'll just need to let you in, but I'll get a notification of that. Alternatively, you can dial this phone number and when prompted, type in this meeting ID. And again, I'll get a notification and let you into the meeting. If anybody is trying to get into the meeting and having problems, please email me at mcrandall@montpelier-vt.org. For those who are attending via Zoom, note that turning your video on is optional. For everyone attending remotely, please keep your microphone on mute when you're not speaking. This will reduce background noise. And note that the Zoom chat function should only be used for troubleshooting or logistics questions. If you have a question or comment about an item on the agenda, please raise your hand, either physically if your video is on or by using the raise hand button on your toolbar. Then once you have been called on by the chair, you can state your name once you're unmuted, and then ask your question or make your comment. For applicants that are on remotely, Paul, you've done this before. You understand that the system's a little different. You'll get a chance to talk and not necessarily have to raise your hand for it. So if you do get called on to speak, please make sure to provide your full name and address for the record. Sorry, just scanning because there's some stuff I don't need to say. And then note that if I get noticed that the public is having problems accessing their meeting, and I can't walk them through and get them logged in, then the meeting will need to be continued to a time, place, and certain, specifically for whatever hearing they're logging on for, whichever application. I'll now hand the meeting back over to the chair.
Okay, thank you, Meredith. We'll now take a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Jean, second by Catherine. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. We have an agenda for tonight's meeting. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We want to welcome our new board member, Alex. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself, tell a little bit about yourself for tonight's meeting?
I live in Montpelier on Baldwin Street. I'm actually a neighbor to 149th State, George's property. We've moved here about 11 years ago, but I've lived in central Vermont for almost 50. I'm about to retire from a 30-year teaching career at Dartmouth College. Before that, I taught at Union 32.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us, Alex. It's great to have you. So we have 3 applications this evening. 2 of them are sketch plan applications that were, we reviewed those on, May 1st. And then also included in tonight's package are some draft rules, revised rules of our procedure for the DRB that we've been working on revising. There'll be no vote on that tonight. But board members take those and review them. Those are also made available to the public via the agenda and the website. If you have comments on those, please contact Meredith. We'd be interested if you have any input. That being said, we can review the May 1st meetings from the DRB. I have no issue with voting to approve these. We don't have everyone here.
Yeah, right. You need, but it's, you don't have to have been in attendance at the meeting to actually vote on minutes. Technically, I've conferred with counsel on this. You don't necessarily have to for minutes, as long as you have some people who are voting for it. I know it's procedurally, most boards and committees do require a quorum who's been there. It's not legally required from what I've been advised. And the DRB's rules of procedure don't actually say specifically right now.
Yeah.
So it's up to you guys if you want to wait until you have 4 members who were at the meeting, or if you want to do it now.
Well, maybe we postpone it to the next meeting. Joe can't necessarily vote on it either because a third of it was his application anyway. So
It's actually probably a good point. I mean, it's not like we have a situation where we don't have members anymore. Like we've had that happen before,
Sure.
where members were no
Yeah.
longer part of the board.
all right.
Point.
So we will move that to the next meeting of the DRB. And move on to our first application meeting. George Estes, if you want to step up.
Hello, my name is George Estes. The residents were implying about this is 149 State Street, Montpelier.
Okay, great. If you want to just hold on 1 second. Thank you for the introduction. Do we have anyone on our electronic platform that will be testifying on this application? Seeing none, we will swear you in as a witness for this application and then move along here. So those interested in providing testimony on this application, would you raise your right hand to be sworn in as a witness?
Yeah.
Raise your right hand. Great.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
So
Thank you, George. So yeah, if you want to, as you were doing, just give a brief overview of your application here and
I purchased the building in August on 149. And the building has commercial office space now. And right now, the space, because of the way the world is, I can't seem to occupy all the office spaces that are in the building. So I'm trying to come up with some type of revenue to keep the building afloat and keep it in compliance with everything that I need to do. And then try to offer a B&B situation for short-term night, like legislatures or Friday, Saturday, Sunday rental to offer for the weekend for people or families to come up. It's just a short-term rental units per one. It's not like I'm trying to get a long-term rental monthly on each one of those individual spaces. It's basically a short-term rental to try to bring in extra revenue for the building.
That's on the smaller unit.
Excuse me, say that.
The short-term rentals on the smaller unit.
There's actually 3 different spaces. Basically, the biggest one is about 210 square feet, and the other ones are all 176, and the other one's like 169 or something like that. There's 2 smaller ones.
okay, great. Well, thank you for the context of the project here. Meredith, do you want to give us a little technical analysis here of what's going on, and we can then proceed?
This is, I think, probably the first time we've had a congregate living application actually come before the board. So the way our regulations define congregate living, which is what I've brought this up to you as, it is where you have dwelling units that are sharing a key element or elements of a dwelling unit. And in this case, there are kitchen facilities, there's bathroom facilities, but the different units are really sort of bedroom spaces, right? And they'll be sharing a communal kitchen bath space. And so that fits in with what we call congregate living under our definitions. So that's come here. It's in this zoning district in mixed use residential. It's a conditional use under our current zoning, any congregate living. So it's before the board because I can't prove it. I don't really see any red flags. There's a lot of red in the staff report because there are places where the board has to make the determination. But there's lots of parking. The use isn't, really going to overlap with the commercial use that's continuing there from what I see, the existing office uses. But the board has to make some of these final determinations, especially in the conditional use chapter of 330, where I've given some suggestions, but I think, digging a little more in discussion with George about a few of those items just to make sure things are on the record.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Did design review have any recommendations?
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, so a subset of the application was some changes that George needed to make to a railing for a second story porch space, balcony space for life and safety code and insurance code requirements. The design review committee was fine with those railing changes. The DRB sort of has to check mark on it so that I can issue the permit. They made one optional recommendation, which was that if George wanted, he could paint the new interior lattice black, which, especially from a distance, would make it so that what you're really paying attention to is the historic lattice that's up in the front. But that historic lattice has the holes in it are too big for insurance purposes. But the design review committee and our standards really don't want to remove that lattice and completely replace it. You've got to do something so you can keep that historic material. That was probably, that's been on there as far as we can tell since the building was built.
Sure.
So that they were fine with that aspect of it. Thanks for reminding me, Rob.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So I guess on to digging into our review here. Does the board sort of understand the congregate living definition, and you feel comfortable with the staff's analysis of determining that this is a congregate living situation?
Am I right in understanding there's still gonna be office spaces that also have access to the bathroom and kitchen?
Yes, there's 4 bathrooms in the building. 2 are ADA approved downstairs. The upstairs is not ADA approved. But there's 2 bathrooms upstairs that are common bathrooms for all the tenants, not tenants, excuse me, commercial people that are there that occupy the offices now. They share the common spaces, the common entranceways, the common fire exits and fire entrances. The common hallways, the building's open from each end, so they can use the downstairs or the upstairs as they will or wish.
Oh, this isn't a question, but just for the record,
Yeah.
yeah, I think this makes sense, to categorize this as congregate living. I know you're always thinking about, continued refinements to the code. When I think textbook congregate living would be full-time occupants. So to me, this is short-term congregate living. So I think we have the information we need to make a determination for this and to discuss it this evening, but that might be something to think about longer term.
So since that point was raised, can I?
Yes, Meredith,
Hi,
go
Beth.
ahead.
So the planning department, planning commission are gonna be working on some tweaks to some of the residential use definitions. You're gonna want to keep an eye on the planning commission agendas. But one of the points that has been raised several times is that we really don't feel like we can dig into the type of residents that are going into a residential use. Whether it's a long-term lease, a short-term lease, Airbnb, once you start digging into those details, the question of who is using that space starts coming up. And so we're honestly, at least Mike Miller and I are feeling like we really need to stay away from that. And there's some discussion about even stepping back and looking at trying to make sure that congregate living uses are regulated more in parity with the other dwelling unit uses, so that maybe you're looking more at the scope of the size of the congregate living to determine whether or not it is a conditional use or a permitted use versus right now in mixed use and residential. Once you go into congregate living, no matter how many square feet of it you use, that's immediately a conditional use. Whereas there are multiple options for a full-size dwelling unit that is just permitted, doesn't need to come to the board. So if you start looking at short-term rental versus long-term rental, it starts, we don't know if we want to go there. Ultimately, it's going to be planning commission and city council decision. I don't.
And I think that makes sense. So to me,
Yeah.
it was important to raise that
Yeah,
for the
yeah, yeah.
record, since we haven't had an
Yeah.
application like this. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you.
Catherine, I think it's important to include that into our discussions here. So I think the next area of analysis here is looking at parking and loading as it relates to our regulations in this project. Meredith, you reference a 1993 blueprint of the property. Is that,
It's in your packet.
is it in the packet?
Yep, it should be in the packet. There should be a foldout. I didn't do that right. Did you guys get this? No.
It's on the computer.
Oh, okay, so let me just rip mine out. Sorry.
Oh, it's all right.
Printed. So,
So I got you.
yeah, so, so that's the site plan.
Yep.
From there, and those are some additional pictures that I put in that should have been listed in the staff report.
Yeah, I see the pictures. I just,
Okay, so. Keep.
Yep.
That's because I printed this one out for myself. Yep, I can do a screen share
Put it
for
on the-
sure. Yep, let me do that. Give me 1 second. Yep, let me simplify my options here. I'll close a couple things out. So let me screen share. Where is it? There we go.
Oh, you walk. I live on.
All right, so there is that. So those thicker lines are where I just sort of highlighted some parking lines that were on that site plan. So here's State Street. Here's the building as existing. This was a site plan that was put forward when they were doing the new ADA ramp. Under those regulations, once they did the new ADA ramp, they weren't actually evaluating parking. That wasn't part of the decision, but they had to adjust these parking spaces down here to become parallel spaces, sorry. So that there was room for the ramp and access here because this bumped things out. So that's why that was on here, but they didn't actually mark all of the available parking spaces. But that shows, a minimum of what's there. And then there are some images that I included that show, these are from different time periods. So this is the sort of existing 2023 image from Google Maps. And you can see some of the parking lines that were already in here painted. And then a little bit, it looks to be maybe a little bit older image just from the quality of the image. There's clearly, there's been parking all along both sides here. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, because there's there's no, the only change is that railing. And so in the design review, they had to consider the historic nature of the building when looking at that railing. But otherwise, for the change of use, there's nothing else changing on the exterior of the building. And they, even just this one line of parking provides sufficient parking
Yes.
for the two uses that are going to be happening here.
And agree with staff that much sufficient parking on this, this parcel, especially as it relates to this change of use. So I don't see any real change there than what's being proposed. I'm okay with that. The next item would be landscaping and screening. And are you proposing any changes to the exterior of this building?
No, well, basically, I'm gonna put some hostas and some plants and by the front sign and by the front handicap entrance, because it's got that ragweed and I've been pulling it out, trying to get rid of that. So it's one of the things, it's just the front of the building on the street side that there's where the signs are, and it's just this disgusting ragweed that I've been pulling out every year.
Yeah.
And now I'm just trying to better the appearance of the front of the building.
So just some clarification on your comment here.
My comment?
Yes, your comment, Meredith, sorry.
Okay,
Were you suggesting like a sketch of the interior of like what?
okay, what page are you on?
I'm on page 10 of the staff report,
Okay,
referring to starting the conditional use standards. Were you suggesting a detail of like the layout inside of like?
no, just the description that was given earlier, that the bathroom and the
Okay.
kitchen are gonna be shared with the 3 congregate living units.
Gotcha.
And how that use was gonna happen.
Okay.
So that's all I meant. Yeah, no, I didn't
Yeah.
think you needed to submit anything in writing on that.
Wonderful.
Drawings.
Yep. No, that's fine. Um. Ready to chime in, board members, if you want, if you want. I'm seeing this is quite a minimal change here from the current use with
I'd like.
Good.
I'd
Yes,
like to
Gene.
Entertain a motion.
Oh, So just make,
you got to go through the.
you guys have to go through the conditional use ones
Yep.
because I can't make those determinations. So I've made suggestions, but on those, you gotta actually talk about the capacity of community facilities and utilities, traffic, the 3302 on, so page, it starts on page, what, so not 9, 10. Just, it can be sort of a checkboxy thing, but officially those are that's why it's here. Just for that.
So my understanding is that you're working with the city to look at your water and your sewer allocations for this project.
Say that again, like,
You're working with the city to look at the water and the sewer capacity for the project.
yes,
And no real concerns there about the change of use, as I understand it.
from what I talked to them, basically though, I was proposing to do it and they said the occupancy of the 14 tenants that are in the building now, offices, that right now the building isn't occupied fully.
Yeah.
So the water and the waste has actually been lower than at previous years that it's been used. So now that the usage is less than it was 3 years before COVID, the building was full. So the amount of water and sewer that it was being used was more than it is now.
Sure.
So I mean,
Okay, I tend to agree with staff on the facilities of water and sewer. I think when it comes to the traffic in the area, I don't see any issue either. I think there's plenty of parking. I think we discussed about the spillover onto the street of on-street parking, probably not an issue here. Yeah, so any board members have any comments on the traffic?
People
Absolutely.
might park and then enjoy not using their car for a lot of the weekend.
So I discussed a little bit about character of the neighborhood. This is kind of a broad brush that gets painted, over the city. I don't see any issues with character of the neighborhood. I think this is, maybe the great type of transition that we should be, looking at for changing times. Board members have any other comment? Oh, wonderful.
right.
So can move on here to the architectural compatibility. The design review did review this and
For the
confirm-
railing, yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be because that's separate from the conditional use review,
I got you.
right? There's no changes specifically associated with the use.
Okay. And then yards, lots, and landscaping here do not have any exterior changes to the parcel, so therefore don't see any issue there. And so I guess ultimately here, we have to decide for the regulations of this, with this new use is compatible with the neighborhood and the, the existing use, and board members feel that this complies. All righty, seeing none. I think we've hit the major points on this. Like I said, quite a sort of minor change here to the current configuration and type of activity on the property. Meredith, did we miss anything? I don't think so.
No. I think that's everything. It's one of those ones where it's trying to come up with writing the staff report. And it's like, well, I don't really need that many facts from George because it all just sort
Yeah,
of works.
I think it's a pretty simple project, easy to grasp, and yeah. So, seeing that, I'll accept the motion.
Motion
Go
to
ahead, Gene.
grant the request for conditional use and minor site plan approval to convert the 600 square feet of office space at 149 State Street into congregate living rooms as presented in application number Z-2023-0057 and supporting and supplemental materials.
Motion by Gene, second by Joe. Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll start a roll call vote. Gene, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gene, yes. Catherine?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Rob, myself votes yes. That's unanimously approved. Thank you, George.
Thank you very much.
So George, this is your verbal okay. The official okay has to be in writing.
Okay.
We'll get to that decision as soon as we can. And because there were no special conditions on the approval, when we issue the decision and get Rob to sign it, we'll also issue the permit. So you'll get everything at once for zoning.
Okay.
You can keep working with Michelle on the building permit part. And continue to work with Kurt on any water sewer issues. But feel free to come in and chat with me if you need to about any of it. But I will reach out as soon as the stuff is ready for you.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, George. Before we move on.
Yep.
Ben, Merrill, could you just unmute and let me know which application you're on here for tonight?
Oh, hi, I'm just joining as part of the Gov Community Garden. I don't really have any input, just spectator.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. John and Maureen Miller.
Good evening.
Good evening. Next application we have is number 5 and number 7 Vine Street, which was a subdivision we did sketch plan on, I believe on May 1st-ish, our last meeting of the DRB. And they're here for a 2-parcel final subdivision plan. So since we are on the record this time, we'll be swearing both of you in as a witness. Is there anyone else on our Zoom platform here to testify on this application? Seeing none. Those interested in the Millers, providing testimony in this application, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So I guess I will say before we start that, this application was I think a very well prepared sketch plan application that we had a good discussion on the last meeting. Meredith, do you want to give us an update on if anything's changed since then and where we're at?
Yeah. So as the board remembers, this is a 2-parcel subdivision of already developed land, so that the ultimate proposal is to divide up a piece of land that currently has 2 single-family homes on it, so that each home has its own parcel with a shared driveway. And there'll be a access easement so that the parcel that doesn't own the driveway gets to park there and use it. And all the necessary rights. So the items that have been added, we now have draft language about that easement that'll get recorded. There's also a little more detail about where those sewer lines run, because that was one of the questions raised. And it all seems to have been tied up as best you can without, digging up the driveway to confirm exactly where the sewer lines run. There's only so much you can do, but I think that there's enough information in here so that anybody buying either one of those parcels is going to have the information they need to plan for any future work. There's a tiny bit of information, a little tweak that I think should be made to the final plat before it's recorded.
Okay.
That's noted in the staff report. But that's, I think that was this one. Sorry. Having both of these subdivisions on for the same night and sketch and the same night for final has been a little hard to keep straight in my head sometimes.
Right. Okay, would you guys like to give a little update on where you're at? And
In terms of the
Do
sewer
make sure you're
lines,
close to the microphone. I know you have a good carrying voice, but I just want to make
Okay.
sure that
in terms of the sewer lines, we did talk to our attorney, Jim Palmisano, on this. He said these are the kind of things that are best left between the two people rather than written into the deed, because things come up. And, the way he kind of characterized it makes sense to me is that nowadays, if something happens to your sewer line or your water line, they basically send a little transmitter down there, takes a minute or two. They know exactly where it is. They send in the heavy equipment, they dig it out, a day or two later, everything's back in business. It's expensive, but it's quick. And yeah, maybe it's kind of a mess for a few days, but what Jim was saying and what I was, when we discussed this was, the house is like 20 feet or 30 feet, 20 feet from the street. There's on-street parking. Everybody uses it right nearby. It's not the end of the world if somebody has to dig up their sewer pipe in the back house. The front house will still be able to access the house. I mean, if a day or two might be lost. So those are the kind of things he thought would be best served by just setting up the easement and the parking and making it very clear, which we did. It's actually designated where the front house would park, where number 7 would park. And it is truly, the driveway is owned by the back house. So
Yep.
if he's got to dig up the driveway for his water pipe, I mean, nothing's going to stop that anyway. So, it seems to me like it's probably a non-issue, and it's just, not everything is perfect. Yeah. Sewer lines, things can happen. We just hope they don't.
did you get a chance to review the staff report?
Yeah,
For the night?
yes.
You did. And so it looks like sort of one issue we should just discuss briefly. I think we did discuss it before, is the sort of the frontage of the two parcels. These parcels are accessed by a shared driveway, so it's a little bit of a different situation than if they both had their own driveway. Board's okay with the analysis of staff here, but I think that the shared driveway does put it into a much different category, and I'm okay with the frontages of the two parcels here. Okay.
The shared driveway is the front.
Excuse me?
The shared driveway is the front.
For the
Yes,
parcel on the rear, yeah. Yeah, that shared driveway is the frontage for the rear parcel. Yep.
Okay. Moving along here. For those following along, I'm on page 6 of the staff report. And we have a couple notes here on the vehicle access and circulation. And I don't think there are any major issues here, but thank you for providing the parking easement and that information. I think that does address the issues brought up in the sketch plan, and so I think we'll accept that as addressing that issue. And so then the next item would be the parking and loading areas. This is also on page 6. And I believe this looks like this is also addressed by the easement that you drafted up between the two parcels. The dimensions here, Meredith, can you give me a little update on the dimensions? You have notes here? So we have a 50-foot long driveway and a 16 feet wide. Is that what we're saying is the limits?
So if you look on the plat,
Oh, yep.
right? So there's actually a dimensions on there now. This is the actual plat versus the site plan, right? Oh, existing conditions plan versus the survey plat. So, and that was one of the things that the survey plat's gonna need to show that those easements, right?
Yes.
So that's the final tweak, right? Is once the board's okayed it, the item that needs to come to me for recording is gonna need to include that like that parking area and easement bit on it. But if you look on the C1 Miller Family Trust existing conditions plan, you can see designating parking area for 7 Vine Street. It's 8.5 feet wide by 54 feet. I think that's 54 feet. Sorry, I need bifocals. 54 feet long. So that fits, parking spaces need to be at least 8.5 feet wide. And they've just spelled out a length there so it's flexible depending on what happens to that front building. So that fits.
That makes perfect sense. Any questions on that?
Well, it's been the parking situation at the property.
Yeah.
For 35 years, and there's just no issue.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's
It's nice parking.
yeah, there's plenty of room for everybody. I've never
A
seen
lot of us.
an
wish we
issue.
were-
I mean, these are small houses, so we're not talking about families with 3 cars or, we're talking about 1-car families or sometimes 2-car families, and there's room for more if they have to be, but
Well, there's room for a visitor, right? They can have
Exactly.
grandma come to visit and park
there's
off
also
street.
parking on the street.
Yeah.
When I go there, usually that's where I park,
Um,
on the street.
Right. So moving on to the design configuration of partial boundaries, we talked about the frontages, and we see no issue with that. Public and private utilities, we, I think talked to some about the underground utilities. I think thanks for your due diligence on that, on that part. I think it's good that process happened. It's underground. We can't see.
Yes.
Trust me, I'm a surveyor myself, and we don't like dealing with underground stuff because we can't see it. So,
Well, we've
it's-
enjoyed living with the survey markers.
oh,
And we've been over there working a lot, and it's good. It makes you look at the property a little differently because, this is the end of one property and the start of another, but
wonderful. And so moving along, one just key part to highlight, and this will be conditioned in the decision, is that you do need to make sure that the markers are installed on the new proposed line as shown on the plat. Prior to recording of the plat, I guess is when we specify that.
But any new pins, anything like that are noted in the plat need to go, are gonna get put in the ground.
yeah, they're in there now. They're about 3 feet high with a flag on them.
So that's been done.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
it's been that way.
So
from-
So they're in the ground, but then
Couple of
they've got
months, yeah.
the higher notices still on top of them.
Wonderful.
Oh, yeah, and then the actual metal unit is below
Yeah.
where the stake is. Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
Rick's pretty thorough about getting that stuff in, and then he'll
Yep.
go back and move it if he has to later, but
Oh yeah. So I I think we've hit the key points here. I don't see any issues, but some of the stuff is just related to the one condition here of the, just including the easement on the plat as we discussed. Board members have any other questions or comments, concerns? Okay. Seeing none, I would accept a motion here.
All right, motion to approve a two parcel subdivision of parcel number 161-007,000, including memorialization of a shared driveway as presented in application number Z-2023-0058 and supporting and supplemental materials, subject to the following conditions of approval. Final survey plat for recording in the city land records as submitted to the zoning administrator for signature and recording shall include the appropriate references for the shared gravel drive, parking, and utility easement described in the draft language provided in the application and approved by this decision. And within 180 days of this decision, applicant shall record 1, the final survey plat modified as required by condition 1, and 2, the parking, access, and utility easement provided herein in the Montpelier Land Records Office, per the procedures detailed in section 4405 of the zoning regulations, including the locations of all applicable survey rods and markers.
Second.
Okay, motion by Joe, second by Alex. Any discussion on the motion? Being none, accept a roll call vote. Joe, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Jean? And Rob, myself, votes yes. That's unanimously approved. So
Thank you so much.
once we, go ahead, Meredith, you're better at explaining this than me.
So we'll get you the written decision as soon as we can. Yeah, so for this one, the condition is a after permit condition. So we'll be able to get you we'll be able to issue the permit with the decision, with the written decision. But then you're going to want to work with Rick to get the final details on the survey plat that'll get created into Mylar and sent to me. So if you want, I can talk, we can talk to Rick ahead of time or.
Just said he was wait till the meeting.
Okay, great. So he can send it, if he wants to send it to me to just look over via email first before he prints it on Mylar. That works great. So you can talk to him, have it send it to me. And then, even if you get me the Mylar before the decision's out, we'll just wait till the decision and the permit's issued.
But
And
there's
then,
no rush.
nope, there's no rush.
I don't know.
If you want,
Patient.
yeah, you just have to do it and get it to me for recording with the easement within 6 months of the decision, the written decision. So you've
Wonderful.
got time, if you want to wait and do that, when there's a transfer or not, whichever you want to do.
We won't forget.
Oh, yeah, because that's not something I necessarily track. I don't necessarily follow up on that. We actually had one recently where everybody was like, wait, what happened? So, yeah,
Well,
don't forget.
It's
Because
been
then you
great.
gotta do this whole process again.
It's been great working with the board. I especially want to call out all the help we received from Meredith. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Comments on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Good
Thank
luck with
you.
your Rest of your process.
Have a good night. I'm sure I'll see you soon, John. Oh, no, or at least talk to you. We talk all the time.
I think so. Yes. I think they were renting out both properties, both houses. No big deal.
Okay, Paul, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And actually, just so you know, Chris is here too.
Oh, good.
So
Need a
Chris is
man.
coming up to the table, so it's
Good.
good. we can
Good
Tag
call.
team this one.
Hey, Chris. And we also have a couple other gardeners on the phone, Michael Verla and Ben Merrill.
All right, so Michael and Ben, do you plan on speaking on this application? Or are you just here to observe?
Or even if you just think you might speak.
Just here to observe and support. Probably won't speak.
Okay,
Yep, same here. This is Ben.
all right, wonderful. So, Chris and Paul. Paul, we'll just assume that you're raising your right hand. We can't see you. But I trust you.
Yes, it's being raised right now.
Wonderful. And Chris, got right to it. Raise your right hand to be sworn in as a witness. Do you solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Yes.
Chris, yes from Paul. And we are on to our application here of 2481 Elm Street. Said it wasn't too long ago. We had a sketch plan application on this. And we'll go with you guys first this time. If you want to give a little update of what's happened since the sketch plan, and we can go from there.
I think the main change, we made a few there, in the staff report, in the sketch plan, there were some suggestions. Some of it related to what the state wants to see relative to the wastewater permit. We understood from the state that DEC that we were not required to get a wastewater permit, but we had to document on the survey plat the conditions that mean basically the distance from the existing house to the lot line was exceeded the minimum, which is 500 feet. And so we talked to our surveyor, and that's now on the plat, which you should have a copy of that. I think the plat was updated, so it has all that information. I think there's also a reference in the notes on the survey plat. I think it might reference the deed that says that the property, the smaller parcel that's being subdivided off, is really just meant to be exclusively used as a community garden.
Right. And also, Chris, if I can add that we have since added specific language that the DEC asked us to include, basically saying if we do anything different with the property, we have to come in for a wastewater permit. And then
Right.
the land is to be used. Right. So that language is now incorporated into the draft deed.
Right.
Oh,
I
the
mean,
deed,
it
okay.
basically says in the deed that you acknowledge that, basically the property may not be perkable and may not be developed for septic. And if you want to go that route, you got to go through this whole process. But I think it's an acknowledgement in the deed that we recognize that you may not be able to put a septic on the property, which was understood right from the beginning.
Yeah, and there's two different places on the survey about the
Yeah.
limiting of the use, although I don't. Trying to see, you said it was on the survey about the distance to the.
Yeah, so
Should be
I'm not
marked.
seeing that.
it's like an
640
overall
feet.
sketch there. They've got a 640 foot. Yeah.
Just looking at the close in.
That's on the
Perfect.
Becky added.
Yep.
Yep.
And other than that, I don't think there was any other issues.
We came back, Chris, the city asked us for information about, what was it, the impermeable surfaces, the amount of impermeable surface on where the existing house is. We provided that information.
We
Right.
did calculate the impervious surface on the remaining lot. The buildings and the driveways, which are questionable how impervious they are, but we totaled all that up, and I think it met the criteria for the minimum.
Yep.
Or whatever maximum allowed or whatever.
Wonderful.
And then they added in, sorry, I'm just gonna jump in. They
Yep, go
added
ahead.
in the details so that there's a map here in the record now about the river corridor.
Yep.
And the flood hazard area. So that was one of the other items that the board had wanted to get clear.
I also just want to add, it might not be clear, but the gardeners are really excited. I know I'm really excited about it because we've gone from a place where we might not, like last year, close that we wouldn't even be able to garden there. And then with the sale of the land imminent, also we were threatened to close the garden. So we are really excited, just the concept that this garden is going to be, protected in perpetuity. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, the level of excitement and happiness from some of us.
Well, and I think just on that note, that condition in this type of application, sort of makes much of the other analysis of it, a little bit, maybe easier, to get through. You folks have done a very good job of documenting it in multiple places so that in the future, somebody, if for some reason the garden disappears and people forget there was ever a garden there, and we have, 2 parcels, that it will be very clear as soon as someone digs into it that, there's one purpose for this lot and it was community garden. And I think that's important for the zoning process, important for other processes as well. I don't see any major issues here to address. Meredith, was there any technical things that we're missing here, for the final review?
And what I'm realizing is, I think Audra gave you guys the wrong staff report.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is sketch subdivision review. Let me see.
No,
Well,
this is-
okay, so
this is final.
so I got a wrong copy. Okay, whatever. Good. I'm glad you guys got this one.
Oh,
You're so smart. The
all
online.
right.
So she posted the wrong one online. Oh my gosh. All right. So somebody who has one that has the motion. So I'm sitting here going, what happened? All right. So sorry about that. Goodness. Audra's out for several days and I have stomach illness in my house and everything falls apart. Yep.
Yeah, the hard copy never fails.
Goodness gracious. So one of you has a motion, but yeah, this is all,
Yeah.
It all seemed to be buttoned up.
Yep.
This is it's a atypical subdivision, but
Yes.
the reasons for it being atypical are documented enough that I think the board can approve it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, go ahead, Catherine.
Are you all ready for a motion? To approve a 2-parcel subdivision of 2,481 Elm Street as presented in application number Z 2023-0059 and supporting and supplemental materials subject to the following condition. That within 180 days of this decision, the applicant shall record the final survey plat in the Montpelier Land Records Office per the procedures detailed in 4405 of the zoning regs, including the location of all applicable survey rods and markers.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Second by
Second.
Jean. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Seeing none. Jean, how do you vote?
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and Rob, myself was yes. That's unanimously approved.
Good luck.
Yay,
Good.
yay.
Not to check every single attachment on the online version.
This is why we have multi-factor authentication of these applications.
This is why I love getting the printout at the police station.
It's secure.
I don't know
Yeah.
how that happens. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a team effort.
Yeah, redundancies, yeah.
So I'm glad I didn't read the staff report. I'd have been totally confused.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm just gonna blame it on the stomach illness.
Meredith, this is Paul, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you just give us, without putting you in a spot,
hold
but
on,
can you
chime
give
in.
us a
Go
a
ahead.
ballpark in terms of when you might issue the rule, whatever it's called, the opinion, the findings for the city on this?
I'm gonna get to it as soon as possible, but I have 3 coming out of tonight. Each decision is almost as long, if sometimes not longer, than the staff reports. So a lot of it is same language, but those all have to be created in amongst all the other work I'm doing. And Audra's out for the next 2 days, so any questions that come into the office that normally go to her, go to me. So I'm gonna do my very best to get it out as soon as possible. I honestly don't know exactly when. I like I said, I was out 2 days last week because of stomach illness in my family. So I'm gonna do my very, very
All right.
best.
No, it's just a ballpark. It was fine. That's fine. I know you're gonna do it the fastest.
I'm hoping that I get everything done in the next 2 weeks before I have to do staff reports for the next meeting that's in 2 weeks. I'll do my best, but
Great.
yeah, you know, I have to have a staff report for the meeting in 2 weeks. So if I don't get all 3 done before then, I have to switch gears to the staff report for that public hearing.
Well, I think board
Gotcha.
members can attest that Meredith's highly productive.
And
Great.
just a clarification, our understanding is that once you get the permit, there's a 30-day comment period.
Oh, there's a 30-day appeal period after the decision. So because there's no conditions on here, I'll be able to issue the decision and the permit on the same day. So as soon as I got that decision ready and Rob has signed it, we can issue that and issue the permit. And then there's a 30-day appeal period.
Right.
Nobody has come in to talk, but because you're talking about then recording the subdivision and the land transfer, attorneys usually say, you should wait to do that recording of documentation
Right, I think.
till
we're-
after that appeal
I think
period
we're
is over.
Prepared for that, so.
Yeah.
For sure.
okay
For
with
sure.
it.
Yep. So that's usually, I think, what attorneys would argue in favor.
Mhm.
And so then, so part of that process will be having that final Mylar printed. I think you're familiar with the process, Chris.
Right,
Um,
and she'll have to set the pins.
Yep.
Hasn't done that yet, I think probably wait till after that comment period.
Sure. And then once the Mylar is ready, bring that to my office because Rob will need to sign it.
Okay.
So we'll need to coordinate on that. Because this is associated with a transfer. If you want to then be able to record that at the same time as the deeds and everything, let me know and I'll just tell you when it's signed and then you can take it upstairs to the clerk's office with everything else. Sometimes for those subdivisions where you want to record it before the actual transfer happens,
Mhm.
I just take it upstairs and gets recorded immediately as soon as
Yeah, I
possible.
mean, we have to go to the city council still for approval of the transfer.
Right,
so-
right. So yeah, wait till you've got all that done and I forgot about that aspect of the transfer too.
Right.
But you know, maybe bring me the Mylar after you've got the city council approval
Sure,
and do all that, but we'll coordinate for sure.
great. I think we're done.
But we're not going to go to the city council until we have the permit in hand, the approval from the city, right? Is that?
Full approval right now. If they need proof, we can cut out the video of the, you know, there's gonna be minutes of the meeting. It should be by the end of this week if our recording secretary gets it in time. So that will be proof that it's gotten the approval. I think you can go to
Oh,
so before you have the written decision. I wouldn't wait.
oh, good. That's great.
Sure.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah.
Approval with
Great.
city council and, back and forth. So I think.
Yeah.
Don't let it hold you up. Just
Yeah,
Right.
don't let it,
Great.
hold- you have the approval. It's just not in writing yet.
Okay,
Okay.
well, we can, I'm not sure about the council schedule and all that stuff, so I'll have to
Yeah,
figure that out.
So you can work with the managers to make sure you know
Go
how to
work
do
on
that.
Ball.
Yeah, I'll work on it.
All right. Sign
Yep.
off.
The last thing is, can you guys make sure we get some rain at the garden? It's really been dry. So if you guys can work on that, I mean, you have all sorts of powers, I know, and I just thought
Should
I
we
would
get
call
on
on it.
City Hall and do a little rain dance for you?
Yeah.
That's a city,
Something.
no authority.
Well, oh gosh, all right.
Okay,
All right,
that was good, Rob.
That's out of your jurisdiction, I bet. All right, well, thank you. Again, I'll echo the previous speaker that it's been great to work with Meredith, so thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, so some other business, we don't have. We have a limited quorum tonight, but we do want to highlight Meredith has put some work into over the last several weeks, I guess, months, maybe, chipping away at it.
No, I just couldn't get to it till
Yeah,
recently.
Right, so she has prepared some draft amendments to our procedures, so I would encourage you to review that if you have comments. I think it'd be great to get that on our agenda for approval. There are some quite outdated things in there, and so just look at that and hopefully maybe have some feedback by our next meeting. And what's our process for that, Meredith? As far as just one meeting, right?
Yeah, for amend the rules of procedure, it's not like trying to amend the zoning regulations. These are your guys' rules. You can just have a vote on it. If possible, I would have as many members here as possible, to get comments from people. Just to sort of as an overview, we had discussions 6 months ago about things in here that were outdated. there was some, I moved some language around because that the item about members not being current members of the planning commission was sort of buried, so I just moved that up to membership. We have, and Alex wouldn't be familiar with this, we had a situation where both our chair and our vice chair had to recuse themselves from an application because of conflicts of interest. And there was no procedure in here for having a temporary acting vice chair or anything. So we have added that in here just to be abundantly clear. I mean, we were able to get attorney's advice and know that we could do it, but making sure it's clear in the rules of procedures seemed like a smart move. And then there were some other tweaks about process because there were certain items in here that the board just hasn't done in years because how certain permits got approved by the city got amended in 2018.
Right.
And so there were several tweaks in here, like the references to the board during its agenda, having what was it, reviewing administrative approvals or the consent agenda items. It used to be every single permit that went to design review came to the development review board as a consent agenda item, every single permit. So, the board would have maybe 3 or 4 consent agenda items every meeting, plus many, many more administrative permits.
Right.
Things that are administrative now would come before the board. So the board might have 5, 6, sometimes 7 additional applications that they had to review every meeting. This is much better volunteer management. It's a little more for 2 people to handle in the office, but we would have had to look at them all anyway to get them to the board.
Exactly. So
Yes, that is appropriately in the packet as a red line draft. And I can also, if you just want me to send you another version of it, I can do that. So yeah, there's a red line in that packet at the end.
I think it's in the printed packet too, or at least I got a copy.
I assume this is all track changes, correct? So
Yeah, that's all tracked.
Oh, it's
I have a question about.
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I thought about before I came in, since my husband and I are abutters to 149th State. Should I have said something about that?
You disclosed it.
I did.
You did disclose it, so that's sufficient. Nobody objected, and it's not like you have a financial interest in that. So, there was no need for you to recuse. The disclosure was sufficient and the appropriate thing to do.
Okay.
And
And I didn't have to say that I knew George when he was a teenager.
no.
We would have very long meetings in this town if we had to go through that.
Especially if you taught at U32 and other places. Oh my goodness. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Okay.
on that note, we would accept a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alex, second by Joe. All those in favor, say aye.
Bye.
All right. Wonderful.